Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, the ruler of the underworld, is he a real figure? Welcome back, everyone, to Mind Podcast. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva is renowned for his eternal vow that as long as there is a suffering being in hell, he will not achieve Buddhahood. Thus, he is revered as the ruler of the underworld. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva has a profound connection with beings in the world of samsara. He was entrusted by the Buddha to be the ruler of samsara during the period between the Buddha's parinirvana and Maitreya Bodhisattva's Buddhahood. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva is one of the significant bodhisattvas in Mahayana Buddhism. He has made a great vow to save all sentient beings. Who is Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva? The name Ksitigarbha is commonly used in various Buddhist texts, such as the Treatise on the Karma of Good and Evil. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva is the ruler of the underworld and is a crucial bodhisattva in Mahayana Buddhism. He is often depicted holding a wish-fulfilling jewel and a staff with 6 rings, symbolizing his mission to save sentient beings from the 6 realms of rebirth. In East Asia, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva is considered one of the 4 great bodhisattvas, alongside Avalokiteshvara, Manjushri, and Samantabhadra, specializing in rescuing those in hell and suffering. Today, both Buddhists and non-Buddhists deeply respect Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva for his vast vow, "I will not become a Buddha until hell is empty and all beings are saved." Therefore, he is praised by Buddhas of the 3 times and trusted by bodhisattvas from 10 directions as the king of all bodhisattvas. Some people wonder if Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva is a fictional character, a product of Chinese imagination. However, our research indicates that the worship of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva originated in India around the 1st or 2nd century AD, coinciding with the flourishing of Mahayana Buddhism. Evidence shows that Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva and related texts were included in the curriculum of the ancient Nalanda Buddhist University in Magadha. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva has numerous stories associated with him. In today's video, we will present some of these stories based on various sources to explore the history of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. In Chinese and Korean Buddhist history, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, also known as Kim Gyogak, was born in 696 AD in Silla, now South Korea. He was a prince who lived in luxury but preferred a simple life and focused on learning and reading. During the Tang dynasty, after studying various philosophies and religions, he decided that the supreme truth of Buddhism aligned with his aspirations and ordained at the age of 24. After ordination, he sought solitude for meditation and eventually traveled to Mount Juhua in China, where he practiced for 75 years, living to the age of 99. During his time at Mount Juhua, he never returned to Korea. He passed away on July 30th, during the 26th year of the Kaiwan era of the Tang dynasty. 3 years after his passing, his tomb opened, revealing his body unchanged, still soft as if alive. To this day, his relics are enshrined at Mount Juhua for devotees to venerate. There are many other stories about Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, which we will cover in future videos. Now, let's delve into the name Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. In Sanskrit, the name is Ksitigarbha, which translates to earth store. However, in various texts, his name appears in different forms. 1. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. This is the common name used in various sutras. The meaning of Ksitigarbha is elaborated in the Treatise on the Karma of Good and Evil. 2. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. This name appears in the Entering the Dharma Realm chapter of the Avatamsaka Sutra, translated during the Jin dynasty. Dharnik Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. This name appears in the Lama Ga Sutra, translated during the Western Qin dynasty. This sutra is another translation of the Entering the Dharma Realm chapter. 4. Ksitigarbha King Bodhisattva. This name appears in the Great Vehicle Birth Story Mind Ground Sutra, translated during the Tang dynasty. Lai Zhou of the Qing dynasty explained, ruling the underworld with freedom of will, hence titled king. The term king is broad, and this explanation is incomplete. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva exemplifies the ideal bodhisattva's selfless actions, descending into hell to save beings with his immortal vow. As long as there is a suffering being in hell, I will not achieve Buddhahood. Thus, he is revered as the ruler of the underworld. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva is widely worshipped by Mahayana Buddhists in Asia. Thousands of statues of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva are enshrined in the Longmen and Dunhuang caves, indicating the locals' belief in his protection especially for travelers. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's vow is described in the Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's original vow sutra. The Buddha said, Avalokiteshvara, if in the future there are good men and women who, for business, personal affairs, birth, death, or emergencies, must enter mountains, forests, rivers, or cross seas, they should recite Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's name 10,000 times before setting out. Doing so will ensure that spirits and deities will protect them, making their journey safe and pleasant, even in the face of tigers, wolves, or venomous creatures. To achieve Buddhahood, one must practice the Bodhisattva path, with each Bodhisattva making different vows to save beings. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's vow is more profound than others, as confirmed by the Earth God in the 11th chapter of the Ksitigarbha Sutra, who said, World-honored one, I have revered many great bodhisattvas, all possessing inconceivable wisdom and power to save beings. However, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's vow is deeper than others. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's ideals and deeds are described in many Mahayana scriptures, such as the Great Drum Sutra, the 10 Wheels Sutra, the Treatise on the Karma of Good and Evil, the Lama Ga Sutra, the Avatamsaka Sutra, the Universal Worthy Action Chapter, the 10 Stages Sutra, and the 8 Great Bodhisattva Sutra. Notably, in the Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's original vow sutra, the Buddha recounts Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's past lives and vows to save beings from suffering. These stories highlight his great vows to save all sentient beings. The prominent aspects of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's vow are filial piety and the wish to save all beings. This is evident in the following 4 chapters. 1. First chapter. In countless past lives, Ksitigarbha was a wealthy elder who, after being guided by the Buddha Lion's courage complete 10,000 practices Tathagata, vowed, From now until the uncountable future, I will use various means to save beings from the 6 realms before achieving Buddhahood. Num 2. First chapter. In a past life during the time of the Buddha Flower of Enlightenment, Ksitigarbha was a Brahmin maiden with great virtue, but her mother, who committed many evil deeds, fell into hell after death. Out of filial piety, she performed many good deeds, dedicating the merit to her mother and praying to the Buddha for help. Through her sincere efforts, the Buddha revealed that her mother had been freed from hell and reborn in heaven. Overjoyed, she vowed, I vow to save all suffering beings from now until the uncountable future. 4th chapter. In countless past lives during the time of the Buddha. Accomplished in all wisdom, Ksitigarbha was a virtuous king who, seeing the suffering of beings, vowed, I will not achieve Buddhahood until I have saved all beings from suffering and enabled them to attain Buddhahood. 4th chapter. In countless past lives, during the time of the Buddha Lotus Eye Tathagata, Ksitigarbha was a girl named Bright Eyes with great virtue. However, her mother, who committed many evil deeds, fell into hell after death. Bright Eyes performed many good deeds and offered them to an arhat, who revealed that her mother had been freed from hell and reborn as a poor, short-lived human. Out of compassion for her mother and all beings, she vowed before the Buddha, I vow to save all suffering beings from now until the uncountable future. Through 4 great vows, 2 of them were made by Bodhisattva Ksitigarbha to save his mother out of filial piety. Therefore, the essence of this sutra has been summarized by Venerable Master Xuanhua in 8 words. Filial piety saves lives, removes suffering, and repays kindness. Thus, this sutra is also called the Filial Piety Sutra of Buddhism. The content of this sutra, as taught by the Buddha, speaks of the supreme virtues of Bodhisattva Ksitigarbha through his previous lives, especially his filial piety and his efforts to save beings. In the Mahayana Sutras, the Buddha once said, all sentient beings are parents in the past and future Buddhas. With vast wisdom as boundless as space and compassion as immense as the ocean, combined with his great vow, until the hells are empty, I will not become a Buddha. Only when all beings are saved will I achieve Bodhi. His image and vow illustrate the Buddha's saying, Bodhisattva Ksitigarbha made these great vows while practicing the Bodhisattva path. The content of the 4 great vows made by the Bodhisattva during his practice is profound. With vast wisdom and boundless compassion, he sees all sentient beings as parents and future Buddhas. Therefore, while practicing the Bodhisattva path, he vowed to alleviate the suffering of all beings. Only when no sentient being remains in suffering and all have attained Buddhahood, will he feel at peace in nirvana. One can say that Bodhisattva Ksitigarbha came to this defiled world with the sole purpose of rescuing all beings drowning in the ocean of birth and death, leading them to the shore of nirvana. Despite the obstinacy and difficulty in saving beings, the Bodhisattva remained steadfast, never retreating from his vow or abandoning the thought of saving beings. His vow to save beings is as solid as a mountain, and his beneficial actions are as deep and vast as the sea. We cannot fully praise the virtues of the Bodhisattva. Indeed, as stated in the verses of praise, even if I praise for countless eons, I cannot exhaust his merits. This is to extol the ineffable virtues of Bodhisattva Ksitigarbha in saving sentient beings. The Japanese have created numerous legendary stories about him. With a gentle and endearing face and a perpetual smile, his image has blended into the everyday thoughts and concerns of the Japanese people. His image makes one think of a country doctor, always ready to assist anyone in pain, fear, anxiety, or trouble, regardless of the magnitude. Nowadays, not only in rural areas, but even in bustling cities like Tokyo or ancient Kyoto, one can easily find small shrines dedicated to Bodhisattva Ksitigarbha at street corners or intersections. These shrines, often adorned with fresh flowers, simple offerings like candies, tangerines, and occasionally sake, are always well maintained by local residents. This reflects the deep respect and trust the Japanese Buddhists have for him. In larger shrines, devotees also offer children's clothes and Japanese sandals, believing that Bodhisattva Ksitigarbha has worn out countless pairs of sandals, tirelessly helping those in need across Japan. Particularly, offering children's clothes stems from the belief that he loves children and is the guardian deity of unfortunate children. This unique tradition is significant in Japanese Buddhism, unlike in other Mahayana Buddhist countries such as China, Korea, or Vietnam. People are unsure where this belief originated, possibly from the Sutra of the Past Vows of Earth Store Bodhisattva. According to one chapter, the deity in charge of human life and longevity, the Lord of Life, is also a bodhisattva who manifests out of compassion. During an assembly with the kings of Yama to listen to the Buddha's teachings at Trayastrimsa heaven, he requested the Buddha, when people in Jambudvipa are about to give birth, regardless of gender, they should perform good deeds and make offerings to the earth deities, bringing great joy and support to both mother and child, ensuring peace and happiness for the entire family. Or after giving birth, they should avoid killing animals for fresh food for the mother and gathering relatives to drink, eat meat, and make merry. Doing such things will prevent the mother and child from enjoying peace. In another passage praising the power of Bodhisattva Ksitigarbha, the Buddha told Bodhisattva Samantabhadra, furthermore, Samantabhadra in the future in Jambudvipa, among kings, Brahmins, elders, lay people, and all other people, if anyone has a newborn child, within 3 days they should recite the inconceivable sutra of the past vows of Earth Store Bodhisattva, and recite the Bodhisattva's name 10,000 times. Thus, the child, regardless of past karma, will be freed from it, will be peaceful, happy, easily raised, and will live long. If born due to merit, the child will enjoy even more happiness and longevity. Not only caring for the happiness of children, Bodhisattva Ksitigarbha also attends to the fate of unfortunate children who die in infancy or as fetuses. Without any concept of self, how can they perform evil actions when their bodies only know how to crawl and roll? Infants cannot utter harsh words when they can only cry. They have no concept of malice, so how can they commit malicious deeds? They have no concept of livelihood, so how can they engage in unrighteous professions for a living? If what outsiders say is true, then an infant is like a sage or enlightened being. Where do the souls of these children go during and after the intermediate state, and how does Bodhisattva Ksitigarbha help them? Because of their young age and undeveloped minds, they cannot distinguish right from wrong or understand Buddhist teachings. Naturally, they cannot practice to attain enlightenment. As explained in the sutra, though innocent, after passing away they cannot be reborn in the Buddha's realms or pure lands. Instead, they fall into dark realms. At this moment, Bodhisattva Ksitigarbha appears, and the terrified children rush to his robes for refuge. Those who arrive late cling to his arms or staff. Bodhisattva Ksitigarbha comforts them. There is nothing to fear. "From now on, I am your parent." The demons demand the children, but the Bodhisattva uses his power to emit radiant light, scaring them away. This Japanese legend describes the suffering that even innocent children endure in the afterlife, and how only Bodhisattva Ksitigarbha can save their souls. Today, as Buddhists, whenever we chant his name, we should remember his great virtues and vows. We must learn from him, taking him as a shining example to follow. When we encounter beings in difficulty or suffering, we should generate compassion and help them to the best of our abilities. In doing so, our chanting of Ksitigarbha's name will be complete and perfect, and the merits will resonate with him. The merits of Bodhisattva Ksitigarbha. Bodhisattva Ksitigarbha attained this position due to his powerful compassionate aspiration to save all sentient beings from suffering, especially those enduring torment in hell. This aspiration was cultivated over countless eons of practice. In the Sutra of the Past Vows of Earth Store Bodhisattva, the Buddha recounts several significant lifetimes of his past. The body, being the root of suffering, is not worth regretting, but it can be used to propagate the Dharma and must be respected. These words from the great masters of old describe our body as one burdened with karma and sin. Life on earth lasts only a few decades, not worth cherishing. However, to attain liberation, we must use the illusion to cultivate truth. Whether studying the Buddha's teachings or chanting Buddha's name, we rely on this body. In times of personal calamity, chanting Buddha's name brings salvation. If a person is nearing death and a family member chants the name of a Buddha loudly on their behalf, that person, except for those with 5 heinous sins, will have their karmic debts cleared. The 5 heinous sins are extremely grave, barring escape even after countless eons. Yet, if someone chants Buddha's name for them at the time of death, these sins will gradually be eliminated. How much more so if the person themselves chants the Buddha's name, gaining immeasurable blessings and eradicating endless sins. Faith in the merits of the 3 jewels and the spiritual power of the Sangha has always been the supreme method of saving sentient beings. Bodhisattva Ksitigarbha also firmly believed in this. During his bodhisattva practice, he always offered to the 3 jewels and relied on the Buddha's power and the Sangha's spiritual might to save his parents and sentient beings. In the Sutra of the Past Vows of Earth Store Bodhisattva, it is written, "In the past, when he was the girl Bright Eyes, to save her mother from hell, she offered to an arhat and made a great vow to save sentient beings, guiding her mother from hell to the Bodhi path." Therefore, self-power and other power must be practiced simultaneously on the path to Buddhahood, as demonstrated by Bodhisattva Ksitigarbha. He has shown us this non-dual method through his practice. Vowing to save sentient beings from suffering is self-power. Relying on the merits and spiritual power of the 3 jewels is other power. Filial piety is the core of self-power, using the heart of filial piety to generate great compassion and vow to save all beings in the Dharma realm, which is other power. The Buddha taught that the blessings of filial piety towards parents are equal to offerings to the Buddha. Thus, even for monastics, filial piety is highly valued. Practicing the holy path does not neglect the common morality of the world. The Buddha taught to cut off worldly attachments and leave home to enhance filial piety, not to abandon parents as taught by erroneous views. The Sutra of the Past Vows of Earth Store Bodhisattva contains profound teachings of the Buddha. The Buddha used the deeds of Bodhisattva Ksitigarbha to illustrate a marvelous truth. The Tathagata store contains all realms, including the 10 directions, the 3,000 great thousand worlds, from Buddhas, saints, bodhisattvas, arhats, pratyeka Buddhas, Shravakas, humans, asuras, to hell beings, hungry ghosts, and animals. In the Platform Sutra it says, "Unexpectedly, the mind contains all. Unexpectedly, the mind holds myriad dharmas." Everyone has the single-minded diligence to transcend the realms created by greed, hatred, and delusion. Due to attachment and dwelling in the 6 senses, we generate desire and confusion, following the karma of hungry ghosts, animals, and hell beings. The inherently pure and bright nature can shatter ignorance, symbolized by the wish-fulfilling gem. The golden staff represents the firm and true heart, free from ignorance and false thoughts. The polluted mind is purified within ourselves. Bodhisattva Ksitigarbha uses his staff to open the 3 gates of hell, symbolizing the purity and brightness of the inherent nature that destroys the three gates of greed, hatred, and delusion. Breaking free with the light of truth, escaping ignorance, entering the Western Pure Land, we should discern the Dharma by using wisdom to choose the appropriate methods from our inherent nature. Which methods lead to enlightenment and liberation, and which lead to confusion and downfall. We should wisely use the lamp of wisdom to illuminate. The myriad Dharma of the true mind is an eternal truth, neither arising nor perishing. Ignorantly chasing after illusions is called delusion. If we generate dark thoughts, we cannot practice the virtues of the Buddha and the Bodhisattva. Knowing the true mind, the inherently pure nature, we always live with this pervasive wisdom, always living with the Buddha's enlightened nature. Dwelling in and revering the true nature, returning to the mind store, the earth store mind is returning to oneself.
The Buddha's teachings on wealth. Going to the temple to pray is useless. Welcome back everyone to Mind Podcast. The Buddha taught that if you try to get rich but remain poor, it's because there is a fundamental misunderstanding. While business people are expected to make money, Buddhists are taught not to be attached to it. How do we reconcile this contradiction? I invite you to take the time to watch this entire video because many people may not fully grasp this issue when learning about Buddhism. The content of this video is based on independent research, so if there's anything incorrect, I hope for your understanding and feedback in the comments section below. If you find something reasonable, take time to reflect and discover the truth for yourself. It's a mistake to think that the Buddha discouraged his disciples from becoming wealthy. On the contrary, he encouraged and even guided his students in building wealth. As business people, we must earn money, while as Buddhists, we should not be overly attached. How can we resolve this conflict? I know some of you may think this way because many people have misunderstood the Buddha and Buddhism itself. Many believe Buddhism is a form of worship and that the Buddha is like a god or saint, similar to how other religions view their deities. As a result, you may become superstitious, going to the temple to pray for all sorts of things. However, Buddhism is a path of wisdom, and the Buddha is an enlightened teacher of both gods and humans. He is not a deity who bestows blessings or curses. Remember that the historical Buddha was a real person. He had a wife, children, wealth, and lived like we do, enjoying all the pleasures of life. Later, he renounced it all to seek the path of liberation from suffering, which he ultimately found. It is a mistake to believe that Buddhists must live in poverty. It's also a mistake to think that being a Buddhist means living a life of hardship, endurance, and self-punishment. The Buddha taught us to live a balanced life, avoiding both excessive indulgence in sensual pleasures and extreme asceticism, which destroys this precious body. You misunderstand because you haven't had the opportunity or the right conditions to read the original Buddhist scriptures, namely the Nikaya, which contains the Buddha's original teaching. Many decades ago, I was like you, only reading the Amitabha Sutra, a text meant for those who wish to be reborn in the Western Pure Land of Amitabha Buddha. Then there's the Ksitigarbha Sutra, which is for rescuing those suffering in hell, the Universal Gate Sutra, for praying to Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva to relieve suffering and disaster, and the Medicine Buddha Sutra for calling upon the Medicine Buddha to heal illness. These are all found in the daily chanting books used in temples across northern Vietnam, recited day and night by monks and Buddhists. Most of these sutras are in classical Chinese or Sino-Vietnamese, though how much is actually understood? I sympathize with my former self and with you today. So how should we approach the sutras now? The Buddha taught many sutras, each tailored to different audiences. The teachings for the sick are different from those for business people. Teachings for tea teachers differ from those for farmers. The teachings for a butcher are different from those for students. Just as a doctor prescribes different medications for heart disease versus stomach issues, or for skin conditions versus kidney infections, it is not appropriate to apply a sutra meant for a mother raising a child or prenatal education to a king or a CEO. That would be like giving liver cancer medication to someone with a gynecological condition. There are many sutras where the Buddha teaches about wealth, how to earn, spend, and manage money, how to divide assets, how to lead, how to have vision and manage. As business people, we should seek out and read these particular sutras. We don't necessarily need to read the more popular sutras found in daily chanting books that are common in northern temples, as I mentioned earlier. These types of sutras are only meant for the elderly, those who are sick, and those approaching the end of their lives. You continuously read and chant these without proper understanding, you may end up feeling discouraged, negative, and self-suggesting harmful thoughts. Reading and chanting without understanding is the way of those without wisdom, and Buddhism is a path meant for the wise. The Buddha's explanation for those who struggle to become wealthy. Long ago, the Buddha advised lay practitioners to avoid occupations that diminish their merit, as these might bring quick wealth but would only provide temporary enjoyment while ruining one's entire life, leading to ongoing suffering. Everyone desires wealth, but it's far better to be wealthy without causing harm than to accumulate riches while piling up more sins. This kind of wealth is not desirable. Poverty or wealth is a result of karma, not something bestowed by a god or deity. If a deity could grant wealth, it would be unfair, favoring the rich and despising the poor, making the poor suffer. Therefore, wealth and poverty are created by us through different karmic causes. In the Anguttara Nikaya of the Pali Canon, the Buddha once taught while residing in Kosambi in the Goshita Park. Venerable Sariputta approached, paid respects, and asked, "Why is it, Blessed One, that some people fail in business, unable to achieve their desired success, while others succeed beyond their expectations?" The Buddha responded, "Sariputta, there is a person who, when visiting a recluse or monk, promises help but fails to give what was promised. After passing away, this person is reborn in a place where, despite their business efforts, they meet with failure and do not achieve their desired success. On the other hand, there is a person who visits a recluse, promises help, and fulfills that promise. After passing away, they are reborn in a place where whatever business they engage in, they achieve success as desired. Moreover, Sariputta, there is a person who, when visiting a recluse, promises help and gives even more than promised. After passing away, they are reborn in a place where whatever business they engage in, they achieve success beyond their expectations." This sutra shows us that gaining wealth is not only about making money, but also about accumulating merit through offerings, generosity, and performing good deeds. This ensures that one has the merit to enjoy wealth continuously. There are people who are extremely wealthy, but because they do not practice generosity despite being vegetarian, their assets gradually disappear without reason, leading to the collapse of both wealth and family happiness. In the business world, often referred to as a battlefield, those who are unfortunate may naively blame their failure on bad timing or envy from others. Successful people aren't necessarily wealthier, more talented, or more powerful than anyone else. The key lies in the foundation of merit they have cultivated in the past and present. To summarize the story clearly, the Buddha explained that some people approach a monk, promise to help, but do not fulfill that promise. After they die and are reborn, whatever business they engage in ends in failure, and they never achieve their desires. However, if someone promises help to a monk and fulfills that promise, after they pass away, they are reborn, and whatever business they undertake is successful. Furthermore, if a person promises to help a monk and gives more than they promised, after they die and are reborn, they achieve success beyond their expectations, greater than they ever hoped for or planned. Do you see this? The Buddha teaches us that if we want to be wealthy, we must keep our promises. If we, as business people, promise 10 but deliver 11 or 12, we will become very wealthy, wealthier than we ever imagined. Who says the Buddha doesn't teach about wealth? I've studied the Buddha's teachings carefully and applied them effectively for decades. The Buddha teaches us to accumulate merit through generosity, offering gifts, donations, and helping others. This is the secret to sustainable wealth. Truly wealthy people, those who maintain their wealth over time, are not just talented, they are also compassionate, virtuous, and possess great merit. As business people, we should reflect on the Buddha's teachings about proper offering. Offering in the right way, at the right time, and to the right person is more important than the act of offering itself. Offering to 1,000 ordinary people does not compare to offering to one virtuous person or enlightened teacher. Giving food to 100 people doesn't compare to giving a bowl of rice to someone on the verge of starvation or providing urgent medicine to a critically ill patient. I've seen and experienced this many times, and I'll make a separate video about it. To succeed in business long term, we must avoid certain practices. The Buddha also taught about the types of businesses that entrepreneurs should stay away from. And these teachings are clearly recorded in the Anguttara Nikaya. There are 5 types of business the Buddha advised against, which are referred to as unlawful trades: selling weapons, selling people, human trafficking, selling meat, selling alcohol, and selling poison. If we want to be sustainably wealthy and happy forever, we must avoid engaging in these 5 types of business. A wise person has right views. With right views, they know right from wrong, and knowing right from wrong, they wouldn't foolishly engage in forbidden acts. Just like if we know a liquid is poisonous, a wise person would never drink it. If we know something is wrong, harmful, and forbidden but still intentionally do it, that is a person without wisdom, a person in ignorance. We should not blame them personally. The fault lies in the ignorance that fills their body and mind. Those who intentionally engage in harmful businesses are driven by blind greed and insatiable desire, ignorant. I have carefully studied and applied these teachings of the Buddha for decades. 5 reasons to build wealth. Let's read another sutra together. To summarize, once the Buddha was staying in Shravashti, in the garden of Anathapindika, the wealthy and generous businessman known to all. Anathapindika approached the Buddha, paid his respects, and sat to one side. The Buddha then spoke to him, saying there are 5 reasons to build wealth. 1. First reason is that wealth, earned through effort, diligence, and the strength of one's hands, acquired legally and through hard work, brings happiness and satisfaction. It allows one to bring happiness to their parents, spouse, children, and servants. 2. The second reason is that a disciple of the Buddha who earns wealth through effort can bring joy and happiness to their friends and loved ones. 3. The third reason is that by earning wealth through diligence, one protects themselves from misfortunes that could lead to poverty, ensuring their assets are kept safe. 4. The fourth reason is that a disciple who earns wealth can make offerings to relatives, guests, the departed, kings, and celestial beings. 5. The fifth reason is that a disciple of the Buddha who earns wealth through effort can make offerings to monks and Brahmins, and this supreme offering brings boundless merit in both the human and celestial realm. As you can see, who says the Buddha didn't teach the principles of wealth building? These are reasons the Buddha provided to help both his disciples and business people understand the importance of wealth. I have studied and applied these teachings for decades. Earning wealth as taught by the Buddha doesn't just benefit oneself, it benefits countless others. The person who earns wealth enjoys the fruits, as does society, both materially and spiritually. I always think simply, we can only give others what we have. We cannot give what we don't have. To help the poor, we must have money. To teach and share, we must have knowledge and experience. To bring joy and happiness to others, we must first be happy ourselves. Earning money to help the poor is a noble goal. Yes, becoming wealthy according to the Buddha's teachings brings joy to many people. If we have money and help the poor and needy, countless people, from our own families to relatives, neighbors, and even society as a whole, can find happiness. The wealth of Anathapindika, Sudatta, and the lesson of prosperity. As business people, we create tremendous merit. In my understanding and experience, the Buddha always encouraged and praised genuine wealth building. This reminds me of Anathapindika, also known as Sudatta, one of the wealthiest business people of all time. He is honored in almost every temple in northern Vietnam, with statues of him and Ananda placed on either side of the Buddha. Near the protective deities, you'll often find a statue of Anathapindika, known by the common name Dik Chua Ong, Lord of Wealth. On the opposite side, there is Ananda, one of the Buddha's 10 greatest disciples, who possessed exceptional memory. Ananda, as the Buddha's attendant, accompanied him for decades and memorized nearly all of his teachings, which were later passed down and eventually written into sutras. Without Ananda, we wouldn't have the Buddha's teachings today. Anathapindika was immensely wealthy and once covered an entire piece of land with gold coins to purchase the Jetavana Grove, Jeta's Grove, build a monastery for the Buddha and his disciples. This location became the site where many of the Buddha's most important sutras were delivered. We should remember Anathapindika not only for his wealth, but for his great deeds as well. Every year, during the 3-month rainy retreat, the Buddha and his disciples did not go out to beg for food, stayed in the monastery to study and practice. Anathapindika provided all the food, drink, and necessities for the Buddha's Sangha, which numbered up to 1,250 disciples. He had not been so wealthy, who would have supported the Buddha and his large Sangha during the rainy season? This is why it is impossible to discourage wealth building. The Buddha only advised against accumulating wealth through unethical means. In fact, if you read the sutras, you'll often see them begin with the words, "Thus have I heard," followed by accounts of the Buddha residing in the city of Shravashti, in the garden of Anathapindika, under the trees of Prince Jeta. Many of the Buddha's teachings took place in this monastery over days, months, and years. Without the financial support of Anathapindika, who donated food and resources, what would have happened? Would we have the sutras to read and study today? In my view, the Buddha did not discourage wealth building. He only warned against greed. Blind, selfish greed, like trying to fill a bottomless bag. Greed without sharing and helping others. The Buddha advises us to earn money and use it to help others through generosity and offerings. I often read the sutras where the Buddha teaches lay people like you and me who live ordinary lives, have families, and work. We read to understand and to practice. Keep in mind that the Buddha taught many different groups. During the day, he might teach lay disciples. In the evening, he might teach monks and nuns, and at night, he would teach the heavenly beings. The misunderstanding some people, including you and I, may have, is that instead of reading the teachings meant for householders, we study those meant for monks or heavenly beings. But monks and heavenly beings are completely different from us. Monks have renounced family life, live in the monastic community, shave their heads, and wear robes. They live and operate in a very different way from us. If we look at everything and think it's easy, then grab a hoe and start digging, it's not quite right. Don't blame the faucet for bedwetting. To be honest, this video isn't meant for the general public, but for entrepreneurs and those seeking to make money and wealth, for themselves, for society, and to help others. Entrepreneurs are wise people. There are 2 types of entrepreneurs, those who rise through their craft and those who rise through formal education and training. The first group might open a restaurant because they know how to cook, or start a construction company because they know how to build houses. However, if this type of entrepreneur isn't equipped with leadership and management skills, they may eventually close down. Many entrepreneurs in this group, if they aren't careful, easily fall into superstitious practices, going to the temple, offering fruit, and asking Buddha for success. If they succeed, they rejoice. If they fail, they blame external factors. Entrepreneurs of this type need to change their superstitious habits immediately. Don't go to the temple to bargain with the Buddha, thinking that a bouquet of flowers or a plate of fruit will bring wealth in return. Success comes from serving and leading with your mind, heart, and courage, as the titles of 2 great books suggest. You must rely on yourself and not shift the blame. They need to learn basic skills, which have been distilled in books on leadership, management, communication, and social relations. We need to choose the right path for ourselves, with the knowledge to confidently move forward toward wealth. If you wet the bed, it's because of weak kidneys, or maybe because you drank too much water before sleeping, or because of health issues or bad habits. It's not the faucet's fault. Don't blame the faucet. How unjust would that be? Learning from the Buddha, I am an entrepreneur, and I always think about and learn from my teacher, the Buddha. I look to him to learn about his virtues, especially his passion and perseverance. He had the courage to leave behind his wife, children, palace, riches, and pleasures to enter the forest alone to seek enlightenment. His burning passion to find the truth and the path to liberation drove him, and he succeeded. Whenever I face challenges, I look to him, reread his teachings in the Nikaya, especially the 21 volumes, to regain my motivation and find my way. I also have 2 bedside books that I always recommend to everyone, not just entrepreneurs. EQ, the Passion Quotient, and IQ, the Adversity Quotient. These books are incredibly effective and helpful. I want to mention other examples of successful individuals who have studied, learned, and applied the Buddha's teachings with great success in managing their businesses and lives. They know how to accumulate wealth and give unconditionally. One such example is Mark Zuckerberg. He created Facebook, providing a platform for society from which we all benefit. He has given away much of his wealth, donating large sums to charity. Isn't he an exemplary student of the Buddha, even if he never claims to be a Buddhist? When I think of the best and most correct teachings, I naturally remember my teacher and the many other meditation practitioners. One such teacher is meditation master Dhammasara. He's a spiritual leader and an inspiration to over 3,000 meditators at the Thabarwa Meditation Center in Myanmar. Not only does he guide meditation, but he also builds roads, houses, water systems, schools, and clinics, and creates jobs for the poor. Each village he supports helps around 15,000 people in Myanmar. Yet, meditation master Dhammasara takes no concern for himself. He lives on 1 vegetarian meal a day. That's the spirit of service. He is a monk and a meditation master who does not seek wealth, but in many ways he is wealthier than many of us. Through my research and experience, I am convinced that one of the best and most correct teachers of wealth is the Buddha. His methods are simple, yet profound. Please listen carefully to this video and seek out the examples of successful entrepreneurs who apply the Buddha's teachings. The Buddha teaches us how to earn wealth righteously, not just for 1 lifetime, but for countless lifetimes. The question is, do you know this? And once you know, do you have the determination to apply it? I believe you will find the answer, as I see you as a wise person.
Was the appearance of Buddha predestined billions of years ago? Today, we will explore the ultimate mystery surrounding the birth of Gautama Buddha. After hearing this, some people's worldview may completely collapse. We all know the story of Gautama Buddha, a prince who lived a life of luxury. Witnessing the suffering of human life, birth, aging, illness, and death, he renounced all worldly pleasures, endured countless trials, and ultimately attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. He discovered the path to liberate sentient beings from the cycle of rebirth and suffering. However, have you ever felt something unusual about this story? In the 3 major religions of the world, Christianity speaks of the Almighty God and His Son Jesus. Islam speaks of Allah and the Prophet Muhammad. Both religions reference an omnipotent deity, but Buddhism tells the story of a man, Gautama Buddha, sitting under the Bodhi tree and awakening to the truths of the universe, understanding the past, present, and future. This is quite peculiar, and there may only be one explanation. Gautama Buddha was not an ordinary human. You might think this is a mere fantasy, but can you truly comprehend the Buddhist scriptures in Sanskrit? Even the renowned monk Xuanzang, when translating the Buddhist sutras, identified 5 categories of words that must not be translated because they contain profound secrets and layers of meaning that are difficult for ordinary people to grasp. So, who exactly was Gautama Buddha? This is one of the most important Mahayana Buddhist scriptures, translated during the reign of Empress Wu Zetian with the collaboration of many great monks. This sutra records the entire life of Gautama Buddha, from his birth to his enlightenment. It also unveils secrets about his past lives and the celestial worlds he once inhabited. After hearing this, you'll realize that what we know is only a condensed version. Why has it been abridged? Because ordinary people cannot comprehend it fully. Gautama Buddha's enlightenment was not only to save humanity, but to rescue all sentient beings in the universe. When reading the Lalitavistara Sutra, imagine yourself standing at the height of the Milky Way, like the guardians of the galaxy. All these incredible stories are the direct words of Gautama Buddha after his enlightenment. One quiet night, Buddha entered a deep meditative state at Jetavana Monastery. The light emanating from his head spread through 4-dimensional space, reaching celestial realms and countless heavens. The bodhisattvas in these heavenly realms, upon seeing this light, recalled events from billions of years ago involving Gautama Buddha and realized he had arrived. These bodhisattvas inscribed the Buddha seal and, in an instant, transmitted it to Earth, specifically to the region called Jambudvipa in the southern continent. When they descended, their brilliance lit up the entire Jetavana monastery with immense divine power. The bodhisattvas knelt before Gautama Buddha, bowing with all 5 parts of their bodies in reverence. They rose and respectfully requested, "World-honored one, please share every detail of your journey to enlightenment, to propagate the Dharma and save sentient beings." Gautama Buddha, sitting serenely, agreed in silence. The celestial beings and bodhisattvas rejoiced immensely. Mandala flowers rained down from the sky, and then they disappeared. The next day, Gautama Buddha gathered all his disciples and said, "Last night, bodhisattvas from the celestial realms came and invited me to recount the entire process of my enlightenment. Now, I will narrate my journey from the beginning." However, he did not start with the life of Prince Siddhartha, but from the celestial realms. Previously, I mentioned that Gautama Buddha, God, and Allah all have celestial connections. The heaven that Gautama Buddha referred to during the Tang dynasty was translated as Tusita, meaning the joyful heaven, a paradise within the Pure Land. In this realm of bliss, there is a supreme ruler whom Gautama Buddha called Bodhisattva B, a great bodhisattva and the ultimate leader of the universe, which we can call the Great Bodhisattva. The Great Bodhisattva is not an immortal being. He also possesses a physical body and will eventually enter nirvana. He holds infinite knowledge, is neither arrogant nor self-satisfied, and treats all sentient beings with fairness and impartiality. Throughout the universe, from Indra Chakra to Brahma, as well as dragons and demigods, all revere and admire him with profound respect and veneration. The great Bodhisattva already knows all the secrets and truths of the universe and could escape the cycle of rebirth at any time. However, he remains in this world to guide all sentient beings in the universe, helping them achieve immortality alongside him. What is peculiar is that the Bodhisattva described by Gautama Buddha has a physical body, but does not take a human form. In the original Sanskrit text of the Lalitavastara Sutra, the Bodhisattva is described as the lion among men, with 4 sharp fangs to communicate with Brahma. His body is perfectly proportioned, his mane flows freely, and when he appears, a radiant halo surrounds him, illuminating the entire celestial realm. This was a previous incarnation of Gautama Buddha, a great bodhisattva with a body beyond the capabilities of ordinary humans. This confirms that his pure land is not the same as the heaven of God described in the Bible. According to Buddhist scriptures, the heaven of God might be located in the highest plane of the formless realm, a dimension beyond 4-dimensional space. Meanwhile, the realm of the great bodhisattva is the heaven of the sensuous world, known as Tusita heaven. It resides high above the galaxy, near the peak of Mount Meru. At the pinnacle of Tusita heaven are 4 wheel-turning monarchs, commonly referred to as the 4 heavenly kings. Gautama Buddha once said, "If I do not become a Buddha, I will become a wheel-turning monarch." The wheel-turning monarchs can travel across the universe in an instant using their divine wheels. The form of these monarchs can be referenced in the painting Heavenly Kings Bestowing Sons by the famous Tang dynasty artist Wu Daozi. When Gautama Buddha was born, one of these wheel-turning monarchs descended from heaven. Upon seeing the Holy Child, he knelt in reverence. This heavenly king is depicted as resembling a lion, with flowing manes and sharp fangs, embodying both majesty and divine power. How strange! Could they be beings from outer space? The great Bodhisattva, towering at a height of 1 yojana, approximately 4 kilometers, is a giant. According to Einstein's theory of relativity, with such immense mass and boundless energy derived from powerful Buddhist teachings, time at Tusita heaven within the realm of desire stretches significantly. A single day and night in this celestial realm is equivalent to 400 years on Earth. The intelligent beings in Tusita heaven have an average lifespan of 4,000 celestial years, which corresponds to about 584,000 Earth years. This may sound like ancient science fiction, but perhaps not entirely. Ancient texts, such as the Sumerian king list, record a ruler named Enmenan-Na, who reigned for 43,200 years on Earth. This suggests that the time experienced by these celestial beings may indeed be interconnected. Although the great Bodhisattva has a physical form and will eventually face death, he has transcended the 6 realms of samsara through enlightenment, attaining eternity upon entering nirvana. At that moment, he ascends to the highest Pure Land and becomes the divine Son of God. Buddhist scriptures record that upon passing away into Siddha heaven, he became a celestial prince known as Ksitigarbha. This is an ancient Sanskrit name, though its true meaning remains unclear. He may exist as a being of pure light, rather than a physical human form. The inhabitants of the realm of desire then built a grand palace to honor the great Bodhisattva, and to this day, they sing praises of his greatness. The great Bodhisattva possesses unparalleled power, infinite compassion, and boundless wisdom. He has abandoned all defilements of greed, hatred, and delusion, transcending life and death. Yet they beseech him to remember the prophecy of the universe. Do you recall your countless past deeds? Dragons, yakshas, and semi-divine beings await you, knowing that your rebirth will liberate them from suffering. The supplicants implored him to look upon the beings of the lower realms, trapped in suffering and devoid of freedom. Celestial nectar has descended to ease the sorrows of these heavenly beings, guiding them toward the Pure Land. Brahma, the 4 heavenly kings, and countless other beings await his rebirth, knowing this is the perfect moment. This plea serves as a reminder of the prophecy of Dipankara, the keeper of the lamp, who is none other than the past life of Gautama Buddha. Billions of years ago, from a universe aged beyond imagination. A prophecy foretold that in a distant future, a saint of infinite wisdom would emerge to guide all sentient beings across the universe, liberating them from suffering and the cycle of samsara. Thus, the hymns sung in the heavenly realms are not merely praises but also reminders of this prophecy, urging him not to forget his responsibility to save sentient beings. Although this may seem unrelated to humanity, why do celestial beings, dragons, and gods seek salvation? The Lotus Sutra states that the 3 realms are like a burning house. No place within them is safe. The 3 realms include celestial beings, ghosts, and gods, and they exist like a house that can collapse into flames at any moment. When this happens, their souls are drawn back into the cycle of rebirth. If they are reborn as plants, animals, or lower beings, their suffering becomes endless. Therefore, even celestial beings and gods carry infinite afflictions and yearn for liberation from the cycle of birth and death. Upon hearing their prayers, the celestial prince proclaimed, "Bhikkhus, the time has come. In 12 years, the Bodhisattva will enter the womb." When converted to earthly time, 12 years in the celestial realm equates to approximately 700,000 Earth years. The celestial prince announced that he would reincarnate to save sentient beings across the universe. This time, he would descend to Jambudvipa, Earth, declaring that humanity on Earth must not be abandoned and must be saved. Hearing the celestial prince's words, the heavenly beings, dragon kings, and deities rejoiced and immediately spread the joyous news across the universe. At that time, on Earth, there existed a place known as Benares, meaning the land of light. In this region resided 500 Prayaka Buddhas, enlightened beings who had transcended the 6 realms of samsara, but had no intention of saving others, only themselves. When the celestial beings descended, they said to the Prayaka Buddhas, "Leave this place. In 12 years, the Bodhisattva will descend to earth and enter the womb." After hearing this, all 500 Pratyeka Buddhas unified in anticipation of the Bodhisattva's descent. Knowing they would not exist in the same era as the Bodhisattva, they decided to enter nirvana. Through self-sacrifice, they immolated their bodies, transforming into relics, sharira, resembling a celestial rain of jewels. Their sacrifice aimed to ensure their rebirth before Gautama Buddha's arrival, preparing everything for him. Subsequently, divine beings across the universe descended to Jambudvipa, Earth, taking human form as prophets. Their mission was to disseminate knowledge and foretell the prophecy of the Savior of the universe. This imagery parallels John the Baptist in the Bible, who announced the arrival of the Messiah. The scriptures then recount that the celestial beings convened to deliberate on which earthly lineage was worthy of fulfilling this honor. After meticulous consideration, they determined that only the Shakya clan possessed the qualities necessary to undertake this sacred responsibility. The Shakya clan exhibited 64 noble virtues. They upheld strict moral precepts, possessed great wisdom, refrained from evil deeds, and were both wealthy and powerful. Most importantly, the Shakya lineage was pure, believed to be descendants of celestial beings. The kingdom of the Shakya clan was located in Kapilavastu, a society organized uniquely compared to others at the time. In this ancient kingdom, citizens and the king participated equally in discussions and decision-making, resembling an ancient democracy. The name Kapilavastu translates to land of golden hair, signifying the golden-haired traits of the Shakya clan. This notion inspired Nazi Germany, who claimed to be descendants of the Aryan race and adopted the Buddhist swastika as their symbol. The ancient king of the Shakya clan, King Shuddhodana, had a wife named Queen Maya. Queen Maya was celebrated by celestial beings as a woman embodying all 32 virtuous qualities, gentle, graceful, and unparalleled in perfection. However, some of her features seemed unlike those of humans. According to the scriptures, Queen Maya had a perfectly symmetrical face, nose, and ears. Her large, round eyes resembled lotus petals, her hair was a deep blue black, and the crown of her head featured a raised point that emitted a gentle, fragrant aroma. Her golden-hued skin was adorned with intricate spiral patterns, likened to a rainbow dragon's radiant beauty. Could she truly have been human? One night, as she drifted into sleep, she dreamt of a colossal beam of white light descending from the heavens. The light appeared in the form of a magnificent white elephant, slowly entering her body through the right side of her ribcage, directly into her womb. At that moment, she experienced an overwhelming sense of warmth and boundless happiness. She saw countless deities appear before her, singing praises of the Bodhisattva. The following morning, Queen Maya awoke to find her body and soul completely purified, filled with joy and serenity. Meanwhile, celestial beings, dragon kings, and deities across the universe began to wonder, could a bodhisattva truly reside within the mundane, impure body of a human being for 10 months? During this time, one of the Buddha's disciples, Ananda, questioned him. "World-honored one, the story you have just recounted seems unbelievable. How could it be that you entered your mother's womb from her right rib cage?" The Buddha listened and responded, "Ananda, if you doubt my words, allow me to show you the stupa where I joyfully dwelled in my mother's womb." At that moment, the Buddha summoned Brahma from the celestial realms with a mere thought. Instantly, Brahma appeared, bowing reverently before the Buddha. He brought forth a stupa with a square base, tapering upward to a pointed peak, resembling a pyramid. Within the stupa were 2 chambers stacked atop one another, each large enough to hold a 6-month-old fetus. This stupa had entered Queen Maya's body through her right rib cage, merging with her womb and radiating brilliant light that illuminated the entire palace. Inside the stupa, the Bodhisattva's embryo began to form. It is said that the secret chambers within Egyptian pyramids may also have been places where celestial beings once descended to earth. After 10 months, the time for the Bodhisattva's birth approached. The city of Kapilavastu witnessed the manifestation of 32 auspicious signs. Most significantly, on the day of his birth, gods, spirits, demons, and dragons revealed themselves, no longer concealed, transforming Kapilavastu into a scene resembling a cosmic battle akin to Star Wars. A birth surrounded by supernatural beings, Queen Maya sensed that the Bodhisattva was about to be born and quickly informed King Shuddhodana to prepare for the birth ceremony. However, curiously, she did not request hot water or clean towels, as was customary among humans. Instead, she expressed her desire to find a beautiful forest for the birth. Accompanied by her entourage, Queen Maya entered the serene and lush forest of Lumbini in present-day Nepal. Her retinue was no longer composed of ordinary humans, but included 80,000 beings, humans, dragon maidens, celestial maidens, and divine goddesses. In the forest, Queen Maya found a magnificent tall flowering tree. She raised her right hand to grasp a branch and assumed a peculiar standing position, with her head tilted upward toward the sky, preparing for the unique moment of giving birth. At that instant, everything fell into a profound silence. Everyone held their breath. Suddenly, Gautama Buddha emerged slowly from the right side of Queen Maya's ribcage. Brahma and Indra quickly approached, draping the newborn in sacred garments and bathing him with divine water. They scattered flowers and fragrances over him in a ceremonial display of reverence. Without assistance, Gautama Buddha took his first steps. As he walked 7 steps in total, a lotus flower bloomed under each foot. These lotus blossoms appeared because Gautama Buddha, at the moment of birth, retained a unique quantum state that could alter physical matter within 3-dimensional space. Thus, each of his steps sent waves of lotus flowers radiating outward, as if the entire cosmos vibrated with his movements. This moment resembled scenes from films like The Matrix, where reality ripples with profound energy. After taking 7 steps, Gautama Buddha declared in a resonant voice, "I am the most noble and sacred being in the world." His proclamation echoed throughout the 3 realms, shattering greed, hatred, and delusion across the universe. In an instant, all diseases on Earth were miraculously cured, and the universe itself seemed to rejoice at his birth. Even the souls suffering in hell could breathe a sigh of relief. The world was flooded with light, music, and dancing, blending harmoniously with the rain of fresh flowers and celestial treasures descending from the heavens. The savior of the universe had been born, none other than Gautama Buddha. The process of the Buddha's reincarnation and descent, as described in the legends and scriptures, is layered with profound meaning. It is both mystical and highly symbolic. The story of the Buddha emerging from the right side of his mother, Queen Maya, and his first steps, which caused lotus flowers to bloom, reflects an extraordinary birth. This signifies that the Buddha is an entity beyond human understanding, representing infinite wisdom and compassion. The presence of divine beings, bodhisattvas, and miraculous phenomena surrounding the Buddha's birth symbolizes the universe and the celestial realms celebrating and welcoming him. This illustrates his grand mission, not merely to aid humanity, but to liberate all sentient beings. The meticulous preparation by the celestial beings before the Buddha's appearance underscores that his role was predestined within the cosmos. He is not merely a saint within the human realm, but a universal savior, bringing salvation to beings across all dimensions, transcending spatial and temporal boundaries. Miraculous signs, such as Queen Maya's radiant body and the vibrations of the cosmos with each of the Buddha's steps, symbolize his cosmic power that surpasses the physical and spiritual limits of humanity. This narrative conveys that enlightenment and salvation are not solely reserved for those who have transcended samsara, but represent a profound responsibility to all sentient beings. Thus, the Buddha's birth is not only a symbol of personal enlightenment, but also a grand commitment to the entire universe. This legend emphasizes the importance of compassion, wisdom, and the ability to sacrifice. It reminds us that the Buddha chose to remain in the earthly realm to liberate all beings. This process is not only miraculous, but also deeply significant in guiding humanity and all sentient beings toward liberation from suffering and the cycle of rebirth. What do you think about the appearance of Gautama Buddha? Share your thoughts in the comments section below when this video ends. Until then, goodbye and see you next time.